Join us on Using AI at Work today as we welcome Joe Stolte, a visionary entrepreneur, AI innovator, and just a prince of a guy. Joe's a former Inc. 500 entrepreneur with multiple successful tech startups, now spearheading Daily.ai, which is transforming how brands and thought leaders engage with their audiences using AI-driven email newsletters. With his groundbreaking work producing high open rate newsletters for top influencers, Joe is redefining content creation in the AI era. So listen in today as we hear Joe Stolte's exceptional journey and insights into AI's evolving role in communication and marketing. Welcome to Using AI at Work. I'm your host, Chris Daigle. Each week, we'll be learning how today's business owners, entrepreneurs, and ambitious professionals are getting more done with smart use of tomorrow's tech. Let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome Joe Stolte to the show today. Joe and I met earlier this year when he was, I guess, in a much different phase than you are now with Daily.ai. And I was intrigued by the business model and just Joe in general. I think that you'll find that he's an extremely capable business person and not cocky about it, which is always nice. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Chris, thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And again, I appreciate you coming in off the beach or wherever you were to do this. I would like for everybody who's listening to understand what Daily.ai does.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super simple. So we help thought leaders and small brands make AI automated email newsletters that get 40 to 60% open rates. And we can do that in less than 5 minutes of time for our customers per week without them having to write a single piece of content. So we've really reimagined one of the most powerful engagement strategies in marketing with AI. And we do it in a way that's better, faster, and cheaper than most small teams and humans.
That's incredible. Can you kind of give me an idea of maybe some of the clients that you're working with and some of the results or feedback that you've gotten from Daily.ai?
Yeah, absolutely. So on one side of our business, we work with sort of larger thought leaders, so we work with people like Dr. Peter Diamandis or Chris Voss or JJ Virgin or Joe Polish or Dan Martell or Dan Sullivan and. These are typically people that have personality-driven brands, or they have great brands, or they're thought leaders, or they're authors, New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestsellers, et cetera. But we also have over 100 different customers in 20-something plus industries that have nothing to do with being a kind of a thought leader or a personal brand. This is, whether you're the coffee shop in Bethesda, Maryland, or you're the venture capital group out of San Francisco, or a real estate agent, or, someone that works in finance, et cetera. We work with small business owners that typically have less than 100 employees. They have customers that really want to hear from them, and they don't have the time or the capacity to be able to engage them on a regular basis. And one thing that we've found to be true in our journey as entrepreneurs, and soon for myself and also for the market, is that, consistency creates trust, and trust creates actions and transactions. And so the more you can consistently add value to your marketplace, the more goodwill you can create, the more transactions you can get them to do with your business. And so we've used email to do that with small brands, and we're super proud of our progress.
Nice. That's an incredible opening. Seems like a very low barrier to entry. And there's no question that email, and in particular, well-written email newsletters, they work. They've worked in every industry that's used them. So I'm glad to hear that. You've had a lot of business successes. What got you to Daily.ai?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, for context, for those that don't know me, that are listening, I'm a fifth-time founder, technology founder. I've had 3 exits, which means I've either sold or taken companies public successfully 3 times. Most recently, I sold a company called GrowFlow for $62.5 million. And then prior to that, I was the number 2 person at a company called Lottery.com, which went public for just over $500 million. And so what got me here was basically I was in my last business, GrowFlow. A friend of mine came in and took over as the CEO, and he asked me to kind of be co-CEO. And I said, you know what? I'm not really into the co-CEO thing, but I'll be the chief revenue officer, because I really wanted to focus on that part of the business. And we were in a regulated marketplace, so we couldn't buy ads. We did compliance software in the legal cannabis industry. And even though we didn't touch the plant, because we were associated with that market in any way, shape, or form, we couldn't really do social media strategies. We couldn't really buy ads. So we had to get really creative. And so we did a lot of direct marketing. We did direct mail. We had a killer sales team, but we did a lot on email. And I got to realize that email is this wonderful tool. It has more daily active users than any single social media platform. And I get to give these keynotes all over the country. And I say, hey, raise your hand if you use email in your business. And everybody raises their hand. And I say, keep your hand in the air if you use TikTok in your business. And, most hands go down. And I'm kind of picking on TikTok, but the fact of the matter is, all real serious businesses in the world, they use email. They're run on email. And so we said, hey, how can we make that process easier and more efficient? So we sold GrowFlow. And right as that was wrapping up, I was reaching out to my network and saying, hey, who do I know that's doing anything cool in AI or possibly email? And it's funny what you put out into the universe, because what I got back was, you should meet Evan Pagan and Dr. Peter Diamandis. They have an AI email thing. But, and so I met those guys and they didn't really have a market. There wasn't any really team put together yet. They just had this great idea that Evan had been iterating on for a few years that Peter Diamandis had breathed some life into. And I said, great. So I joined, I became CEO, started raising some money, recruited a lot of my old teammates from my last two companies.
Nice.
And here we are today. That's how we got here. I said, how can we help people with this email thing? Because it's so effective. But everybody's so focused on this whiz bang, new social media, paid strategy, AI, whatever. But email, just boring old email, continues to be highly effective. In fact, 80% of brands with less than 100 employees still use email as their primary acquisition and retention strategy as a channel.
Yep.
So I said, great, we have all these new cool things happening with AI. How can we combine those two things and just make everyone's life a little bit easier? And to put a fine point on it, like our mission as a company, Chris, is to help every small business be to market without being a marketer, right? And we want to do that through technology.
Nice.
So you don't have to do all the stuff that like you and I did to study marketing and practice it, whether that's brand marketing, direct response marketing, writing out sales letters by hand or whatever. We want to create an operating system that makes that much, much easier for smaller brands to just use and reach our customers and do what they're great at, which is producing and delivering their products and services.
I love it. So all small businesses listening to this program, please take note, Daily.ai. So Joe, were you using AI, generative AI, prior to your participation in the business now?
Yeah. So right when when we sold GrowFly, I started getting really, really interested. I got access to GPT-2, not Chat GPT. This is 2 years before Chat GPT came out. It was just AI API access. And I just was kind of messing around to get a feel for, hey, what's possible? And, I was blown away. And GPT-2 is pretty inferior comparatively to what we have available to us today. There was no chatbot interface. There wasn't a lot going on there. But I was blown away by the novelty of being able to just, with a couple of well-crafted inputs, get incredible outputs fairly quickly. And so that got my brain turning. And then, I took over as CEO of Daily.ai back in 2021.
Were you using it for anything in particular, or were you just experimenting with GPT-2?
At that time, I was just experimenting. But I think that's the important first step is to kind of get rid of the fear of change and the fear of, hey, this is something new and it sounds AI. It sounds
techie, complicated.
Yeah, exactly. And so just to get rid of that and just to start playing around, and then when you're in a state of like curiosity, it's like a higher human state than when you're in kind of fear or anxiety. So I think the first step for us, and is applicable to people listening to this, is like, hey, like if you can get into curiosity and get out of like fear of change or fear of tech or whatever, that's like the first door you have to walk through. And then once you go through that door, everything's possible. But to answer your question specifically, then we started using it for almost everything. Like as early as 2022, we were using it for crafting. We basically have two primary use cases that we've used, since back then all the way till today with GPT-4 from a, generative AI model perspective. The first thing is we try not to start with a blank sheet of paper. Like in our business, we know that about half of companies spend not days or hours, but 2 to 3 weeks to make a single marketing piece or an email newsletter because they have this blank page problem. What do I put in there? What should it be about? And so the first thing we do is we use tools like Chat GPT. We never start from a blank page. We just have an idea of the outcome that we want and a description of what we want to create, and we have it created for us. And even if it's totally wrong, it gets us over that blank page problem, right?
100%.
The second thing that we do is we actually, I like to look at AI, especially generative AI, as a really, really, really good intern. And any experienced business person knows you don't ship intern work to the marketplace. You always have a more experienced person come and look at it.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because we're so far up the experience curve. Like, we have enough intuition to know what's going to work and what's not, but we're smart enough to test it anyway. These generative models, they don't have any of that. So what I'll do is, we don't start with a blank page, but once we get something back from them, we'll then take it through our process, whatever that is, whether that's a job description or a piece of marketing collateral or an important response to a customer, of which I could give you several examples. We'll write it out, and then I'll take that output and I'll feed it back into Chat GPT, and I'll say, hey, using something called the inversion thinking mental model, help me find ways that this communication could fail if our objective is with this person to do this. And then it'll give me ideas, basically how to make the content better. So instead of going from zero to blank page, now I'm going the other direction. Hey, poke holes in this. Help me find how I can make it better. I'll pick 2 or 3 things that I think we can make it better. And through a combination of our humans on our team or myself and some additional prompting, we're able to get a far better end product than we were when we were just writing stuff on our own. I mean, it's really remarkable. And it's all fast. It's in seconds.
So what percentage is human in the loop in most of the stuff that you would be doing? Not the product that you're delivering through Daily, but like for internal processes and operations.
Yeah.
If you're using generative AI, I know that you're not using it over every single piece of your business, but where it's being used, how much, because that gives me some indication of time saved or scalability.
Yeah. So we're not, we don't just make a lot of our own tools, obviously. We're an AI company.
For no code?
We also, no, we have a team of engineers and developers, we're working on stuff, but both for internal tools as well as external tools. And I can give some examples. But for stuff that anyone could access, we're using Chat GPT, Bard, and other similar kind of chat large language learning models for generative AI in every phase of our business. So if you just look at from the very beginning, like finding, sourcing, and managing people, we use Chat GPT for everything: job descriptions, job scorecards, performance reviews, text analysis. We use it inside of our marketing. Obviously, that's our bread and butter. But we use it for very complex, for example, prompts to generate deep user research that we then hand to researchers to validate. And then we package, and then we use that as a base to say, hey, help us write copy, or help us improve our positioning, or help us improve our website. I want to ask you
about that particular application. Are you doing that with actual data sets of existing clients, or are you having the models synthesize those audiences to test?
Yeah, good question. So in our email product, we do both. But basically, every time someone opens a newsletter, the newsletter gets smarter based on people are clicking on, because we know that inputs and outputs, the way that these LLMs work is it's input, process, output. You put a prompt in, it runs its process, you get an output. But we know that outcomes are more important than outputs. So we want to make sure we get the result. And the only way you can do that is through what we call adaptive learning or iterative intelligence, or put simply, testing. Did it work? Nice. And so, if we're writing a sales or marketing piece or changing our sales and marketing in any way, we'll start, let's say we weren't using AI, we would do the same thing. We'd have a hypothesis. We would we'd build a marketing or sales piece. Yeah. We would test that against our control or get a baseline. And then we would look at the results, and then we would iterate. So we're using AI for every single part of that process. We're using it to generate the first draft, feed up the final one. We then publish it. We take the data, we put it into Chat GPT data analyzer. We get insights, we make iterations, and we keep repeating it. So we're doing kind of a human version of that for everything that isn't like in our email space. Because we know that works so well in our main product, we want to replicate that. What do I mean by that? We just want to test everything and make sure that we're constantly getting that feedback loop. And for the reason why is in business, most things don't work. I don't mean to be negative. It's just that, like, when you publish a marketing piece, if your conversion rate was 51%, then you're printing money, right? So because it's usually under 50%, the majority of things you did, the majority of people you put in front of didn't care. So we have to
Yeah.
crack that code and keep trying to get that up into the right. The only way we can do that with testing.
So, and testing is expensive, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not currently doing it the old way. Maybe not necessarily dollar percentage, because it's going to be a different answer for every business. But as far as maybe result cycle or time to complete that cycle, old way versus new way, what have you, what's a ballpark estimate on time savings or talent
Oh yeah, I
savings?
mean, I'll just compare to like, so at GrowFlow, when I came on as CRO, we had about 17, 18, maybe 19 employees, and we scaled to 119 employees in less than 90 days. We weren't using any AI. We had rapid scale, and that's what we do. It's kind of what I do as a scale up entrepreneur, right? As we blitz scale and we grab the market, including with lots of people. At Daily.ai, we had a 7-person team until summer, the whole time. Now we're at like 23 people. So we were basically doing the work of probably 50 to 80 people with less than, with a team that could be fed on a couple of pizzas. Be very, very full on a couple of pizzas. And so, now we're scaling and our team's growing much faster because we're building a whole new part of our product that has nothing to do with email marketing. But so just to give you basis of comparison, because we were an AI first company, we were getting 4, 5, 6x multiples on output on a pure output basis, which I would argue in any business, speed of execution, speed of implementation is really, really important. Especially in small organizations, especially in early stage tech. So, I don't know how that translates to from an hours perspective. I just know that I was able to keep an insanely low burn rate, being the amount of money we spend each month, because I wasn't hiring people as fast as in any of my previous startups, because our capabilities were just so amplified through, different forms of AI.
Let me ask, so when you put the team together, was there experience with using AI an important qualifier? And if not, what was the process like getting them up to speed to adapt to using these new tools?
Yeah, no, it really wasn't. Today we can hire someone in the Philippines to our fulfillment team for between $500 to $2,000 US a month. And through our video trainings, which we use AI to update, and our SOPs and various onboarding materials, which are all mostly created using AI and generative AI, we can get them up to speed in 21 days now or less. So yeah, no previous AI experience required. If you have it, fantastic. Sure. But the main thing is that you have two things, and this is applicable whether you're hiring people or you yourself is trying to come in. First one is you've got to be curious. You got to have a growth mindset. Yeah. And the third thing is if you're hiring people, they need to feel like they're in a safe environment. If you're curious, you're in a safe environment, you have a growth mindset, there's been research and really intelligent people that have said that, perhaps the drive for curiosity is stronger than maybe the drive for survival or sex in our species, but we just mute it so much. So you really got to be curious. If you're curious, it's this really powerful, I've found, my experience shows it's a very powerful human drive. So if you have that, you don't need to know anything about AI. Like your human curiosity will just fill in the blanks. That's really kind of the main prerequisite stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. They're very easy to use.
Yeah. So it's refreshing and exciting to hear team contribution that it does. But I'm interested in your use in it strategically for ideation, for negotiation preparations, for, I don't know, legal review. I'm not suggesting that, but there's a lot of uses for it. How are you as a business executive, a business owner and founder, using it for the strategic side of your business?
Yeah. Well, we kind of go in reverse order. So we do use it for legal. I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but I've been a startup founder for long enough that I've had to learn legalese a little bit, navigate contracts. I think we've engaged our lawyer maybe like 7 or 8 times meaningfully this year. And a lot of that was like, hey, we need to change our name, help us with some filings. The rest of it is like, hey, we have a base agreement that's already legally sound. And I'll say, hey, write this identity clause to be 2-way instead of 1-way, and it'll rewrite it. And I'll go look at another identity clause and those look pretty good. And then if I'm really worried about it, I send it to my lawyer. I'm like, hey man, does this look good? And instead of paying for like a full hour of the lawyer's time, I pay for 5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. And nice. It's like, yeah, fine. It's totally fine. And so we've had tremendous advantages. And if you know your way kind of around the legal contracts, you know how to prompt, I use it's great. Of course, all please check with your lawyer and, do
Yeah.
have a legal professional
Disclaimer.
look it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's helped us move a lot faster. Now strategically, what we'll do is like, here's a relatively real life example. So, well, we end of 2022, we had our 2022, we put our beta product in the market. It was a closed beta. We let maybe 30 or 50 people in a quarter. And towards the end of the year, we started having churn. We had, pretty high churn. It was like 20 something percent churn, which is egregious in our world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we documented all the reasons for the churn, and I just started having a conversation with Chat GPT, right? Right as it came out at the end of last year. And I was like, hey, here's our reasons for our churn. Here's our product. Here's a description. Here's a copy from the website. Here's what we're trying to get accomplished. Uh, you know, Assume that you're a startup product expert that knows how to reduce churn and create products that people love. Give me 10 ideas of how we can improve our churn. And so that, through that process and some back and forth, we realized something that was like sitting right in front of our face, but that we weren't quite recognizing on our own, but we did through this interaction with ChatGPT, was that, hey, launching an email newsletter is pretty complex. There's a lot of like micro decisions you have to make. And in product management, the more decisions you ask a user to make, the more you're inviting them to abandon you. So we said, great. So we just reframed the whole thing as a done for you offer. They fill out a survey, they get on a phone call, and then our product still is doing everything in the background. But then we had started first. We had some humans doing stuff, and then we productized that. So we made it seem very hands off, and it is for the end customer perspective. And that took all the fear away from using the product. And we did. That's a pretty big product strategy change for us. And there's a handful of other things we did, like we moved from month to month to annual agreements. We changed our ICP, our ideal customer profile, to go up market a little bit, and that was all discovered through this interaction with ChatGPT and conversational AI.
It's incredible. Are you at the point to where you're interacting with GPT or whatever model you're using on a daily basis?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll be in the middle of. I mean, full transparency, I don't do that many sales calls anymore because we've really scaled our team. But we don't have a sales script. We have a sales methodology that we follow. It's a kind of a customer-centered methodology called gap selling. And when I'm on a call with somebody, ultimately I'm trying to make sure that I'm helping them make the best decision for them. I'm not there to hard sell them So I use it in sales calls. So I'll ask you, Chris, questions. And as you're answering those questions, I'll feed answers into Chat GPT, and I have a predetermined script to try to figure out, like, what are your gaps? What are your beliefs?
Yes.
What are maybe your unconscious fears I need to bring to light in the call so you're making the best decision for you? And so I'm just typing these. I have copy paste things we just pump in there, and I just made that because it helps me think faster. Now sometimes it'll give me back the result, and I'm on a call, and I don't agree with it. That's fine. I still use my intuition. That's why I'm a CEO / sales professional / entrepreneur. Because again, AI is a good intern. I want to make sure that I'm using what I know is best as the final arbiter, sort of the final arbiter of what goes out the door. But and I've done enough sales calls where I can stay fully present in a call and take notes. The only difference is now I'm taking notes in Chat GPT and getting a little bit of feedback, so that if like I need to get a distinction that's going to help me better communicate with you, then I can get that. But we use it in everything. I use it, in meetings and calls, coaching my staff, sales calls. I'd be lucky if a few hours goes by where I'm not using it.
Yeah, I'm the same. So this is an interesting scenario. I'm not a sales guy, but I am about 12 months behind where you were this time last year, launching with Chief AI Officer. And my intention, like you did, is to take those initial sales consultations, right? Because you understand who you're servicing a lot better if you, the visionary, are actually interacting with them. I don't consider myself a salesperson. I'm able to just speak frankly with people and honestly, I think, and that's my method. However, that's a skill that I would want to improve if I'm going to be on the phone a lot more. Never heard of gap selling in my life, but I know that if I went to GPT and said exactly what I just took the transcript from that little snippet of this interview, uploaded it and said, teach me about, what do I need to know to be, what's the 80-20 on gap selling? Like that, the very next call, 5 minutes away, I could be leveraging a skill set that without that, I would read books, listen to podcasts, audiobooks, all that stuff. And instantly I now have access to some of the best practice from any method like that. That's a great idea.
100%. And by the way, just to
Yeah,
double click on that, maybe someone's listening to this, they don't consider themselves a sales professional or whatever.
I
They're
don't.
not in
Yeah.
sales. Um, what sales has kind of a weird stigma around it in Western culture, probably because a lot of people have abused it. But I think the best sales professionals in the world are really great at one thing in particular. That's active listening. So like you could literally just ignore everything we just said about selling and go, hey, Chat GPT, tell me what is active listening. If I'm coaching a team member or talking to a customer or interviewing somebody or having a conversation with my wife or whatever, here's a scenario. Here's kind of what I'd like to get out of it. What are some tips to help me become a better active listener? And just do that. I mean, active listening increases empathy. It helps us relate to each other. If every human in the world practiced that, at a high degree of skill, the world would literally be a better place. So that's something you could do that's universally applicable in almost any human interaction. Is just learn to be a better active listener. You don't even have to know what that means. Go into Chat GPT, ask a few questions, and they'll start telling you what it is and how you can apply it in your life.
Let me ask you, do you have children in the house that are old enough to be using the tool?
No, my son is almost 5 years old at the time of this recording, and my daughter is like 1.5. So
Would you, under your direction, teaching them, would you have any issues with your children using it? And at what age would you see that? It's kind of off topic, but a lot of business owners have family and they juggle this situation where, I'm married to my business, but I'm also married to my family. And
yeah,
when you introduce the active listening, one of the things you mentioned, it wasn't specifically about business. You were talking about and talking to your wife, right? So I'm curious what your position would be on that, because as entrepreneurs, the more time we get back, the better. And if we're only applying these tools in our business environments, we're missing out on some opportunities to leverage it in our personal and family lives. So,
yeah. Um, I, I learned many years ago from Jay Abraham that you should get everything you can from everything you've got, and so that's try to apply that. If there's a resource I can use to get a better outcome, then I'm going to try to take advantage of that. And so I would extend that same set of thinking to my kids naturally.
yeah,
So yeah, absolutely. I think AI can be a powerful component. It's not with taking care of kids and educating your children. It's my belief that there's no one solution. Like, oh, I just send my kids to school and let them deal with it or
yeah,
whatever. There's many, many, many components, and I think AI will certainly be a tremendous component in that example, right? And so yeah, I think that using generative AI or really any kind of AI to get an advantage in terms of getting up your learning curve, do it. And I think what's really powerful about generative AI and the intersection of that and let's say learning, especially for children, is our education model today, God bless it, love it or hate it, this is an endorsement for or an indictment of, is pretty one size fits all, right? And so
yeah.
like with AI, we can personalize the whole experience. So it seems fairly obvious to me that at some point there'll be an AI tutor that will watch what Chris did in his Pee Wee football game and then
Yeah.
relate that back to helping him understand algebra, right? Because it's very personal to you. You can build,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
build on the things you're already doing in your life by watching your Pee Wee football YouTube video and then going, hey, how, and then making a real life example that's meaningful to you, right? As Chris's personality, and
Nice.
imagine inside of that opportunity, which to me it just seems like one of those things that's going to be inevitable. It doesn't matter if you have dyslexia or a learning challenge, like AI, multimodal AI, meaning like voice, audio, and video, along with your physical movement of your body, can cover all the ways that we learn: auditory, visual, kinesthetic, or otherwise. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that world. In fact, if I wasn't building Daily.ai, I'd be building something over there. But yeah, I think AI is going to be like electricity. When's the last time you said, "Oh man, like
Utility. Yep.
this yeah, this seems like utility." It's like it'll just be in anything with electricity will have intelligence inside of it that where it doesn't today. And so for sure AI is going to impact educating, and for sure I want to make sure my kids have the best resources to learn on their terms. So answer is definitively 100% yes.
So it's obvious that you're a very comfortable user of generative AI. how long was that process of you going, oh, AI, and having this idea of Skynet or the Terminator or whatever, not the negative side, but like some advanced stuff. How long did it take from you? And I don't know if that was your bias beforehand, but walking in, using the tool to where you had that oh moment. Like how long was that in learning curve?
Oh, I mean, like immediately. Like the
Yeah.
first time I ever typed something and got a response back, I was like, my entrepreneurial opportunity seeking brain
Yes.
was like, oh boy, this is going to change everything.
Yeah.
And thankfully, this is like, for me, that was back in 2021. So I got a little bit of a head start, but boy, was I like, and and I don't write code. Like I build and sell technology companies, but I don't write code. Like I took some like web development class in like the 90s and I was like, oh man, this is definitely not for me, So, but I love, but for me, I love novelty. I love learning new things. I love learning how to make things better or more efficient. And so, I mean, my God, this is such a powerful tool. It was powerful then, even more powerful now. It'll continue to be like that as we progress. So for me, it was instant. And the minute I used it, I instantaneously thought, wow, look at the power of this thing. This is going to change the world.
Nice. So with your team, let's say the Filipino outsourcers, I would imagine if you're outsourced, especially if you're offshore outsourced and doing it to feed your family, you're probably using the tool a little bit, right? To help write the Upwork reply or something like that. As you're bringing them on, it's a 21-day process, which is pretty incredible for you to feel comfortable enough for them to be capable of filling that service, that particular part of their contribution to your service to the clients. And I know you hold very high standards. Is there hesitancy, resistance? Is there, or are they having that almost immediate oh moment?
I think it's on a person by person basis, but we try to make it so simple that, like my 76-year-old mother would be like, oh, I understand this is pretty straightforward. Someone that, there's this model that's, the diffusion of technology, the innovation of technology. You've got, early adopters, late adopters, laggards, et cetera. So we try to say, how can we make a onboarding experience or learning experience where a laggard, someone that might still love their rotary telephone or whatever, be able to jump in here and get good value and use out of it in a way that's not super intimidating. So we kind of start from there. We have a couple other things working for us. We're a completely virtual company. Everybody's virtual and all around the world, Brazil, Spain, US, Philippines, there's a lot, like I think like 6 to 7 different countries, Armenia, like lots of different people are working full time for us. Even our co-founders are all in different places. And so that virtual first culture also makes it super easy. So like if you have like a whole team of like people in an office and you have people working in the Philippines, it's easy to be like, oh, well, that's the kind of offshore resources. Like from every perspective, everyone is offshore in our business. Like we're just a big virtual team. So that also helps. Right.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we have a lot of experience with that rapid scale piece, and we try to bring that to bear here. Whether you're learning generative AI or we're trying to game you up on a methodology or HubSpot. So we've thought a lot about how do we allow people to learn quickly and to be ramped up effectively. Because you think about, you're hiring a new staff member. Most people don't have an architected onboarding experience. They're not measuring the progress of those individuals. They don't have clear KPIs that allow you to say, hey, I need to jump in and help this person because they're not getting it. Or, I don't need to do anything. I need to just pat them on the back, or actually let them go. So you have very clear criteria for all that. And it's not because we want to be cutthroat. We want people to win. We know that when your team is intrinsically motivated, they're doing work that's meaningful to them, that matters, it's having an impact. That actually means more than the money.
Yeah,
and
matters.
If they're not doing a good job or they're incapable of doing that job, then I'm actually holding them hostage from really self-actualizing in their work. And so we really don't want to do that with anybody. It also, we don't have the money to spend on that. So, it's good for the world and good for humans, but it's also profitable to not linger around people that aren't going to get the job done. So we've really thought about that process. And it's actually not that difficult. You just make criteria for
I want to hear more about
go. Yeah.
So I want to pull on that thread because onboarding is hiring, the whole hiring, firing, replacing, getting somebody back up to proficiency. It's an expensive and labor intensive and time intensive traditionally process. What you're doing, taking somebody who's never heard of your company before, who English isn't their first language. I know it's the language of business there, but like all of the time zone difference, them having to work on, over the graveyard shift over in the Philippines. Most small business owners that are listening to this, if they have a physical location, they're not dealing with those constraints or those hurdles that they have to jump. And I would like for you, were you involved in the architecture of that onboarding program?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's the same whether it's a $250,000 a year engineer or it's someone from the Philippines or sales professional. The architecture is the same, right? We want to have
what that is.
Yeah. So we just, first of all, you want to just think about it from a process: input, process, output. You have the inputs are like people and signed employment letter or offer letter or contract or whatever the case is. And then you have an onboarding process, and I have clear definition of what's the output. The output should be, a job, a person that's functioning proficiently or above proficiency according to measurable criteria. So before I even make the process in the middle, I know what's coming in, I know what's coming out. So if something's broken, I either need to change the inputs or change the process. My standard is going to be the same. Most people don't have a standard. So that's like step 0 is like, what's the definition of success? Think with the end in mind. What's the outcome you're trying to accomplish here? And then I like to say, what's someone that's really crushing it and exceeding my expectations? What's somebody that's right there at my expectations? And what's likely to happen if they're not meeting my expectations? And how would I know that? So then I know in advance when I'm going to assess them, it's fairly objective. It's not just how I feel.
Sure.
It's like, hey, were you able to get through this kind of work and get this kind of output? And so then what we do is, we have this whole process, but what we do is we instrument what we call leading indicators, right? So we want to know early if somebody's struggling, not later, right? There's a kind of a delayed reaction in some of these things. So we try to architect their experience to be really straightforward. It's like, okay, very, very quick in the process, I need you to be able to do X. Here's an SOP on how to do X. Here's a Loom video that accompanies that. Please do X. And then I'm going to review that output. We actually do a bit of that in the interviewing. And then we just build on that as they start to onboard. But the first thing you want when someone comes in is you got to give them resources, give them access to all your tools. It's boring, but do they have access to Slack? Do they have access to whatever, Google and all the tools, our product? So there's a list of everything they need access to and people responsible for giving them that access. Okay, fantastic. Now they need to be trained. What does that look like? Do they get on a Zoom call with you and you train each one personally? Do they watch previous recordings? Have you made like a video recording of their expectations? They got to get oriented and acclimated to your world. And so we have to take them through that experience. And then from there, it really bifurcates depending on the job, but we start to get them in doing the work as fast as possible. Because if we're trying to train them and so they can learn, the way that we see the world is that learning is evidenced by behavior change. So we want them to do stuff as fast as possible, get out of their head and get into action and see if it's translating, and then start to calibrate it. So again, so if it's an engineer, that might be a low-level coding project and looking at their quality of code. Does it have bugs? Did it merge well? Do they follow the rules? So that, if it's someone that's helping us with administrative tasks, it's like, okay, cool. Like, did you follow the SOP? Were you able to pay attention to detail, et cetera? And then like I said, we have this vision of like, what does exceeding expectations look like? Well, exceeding expectations look like, hey, you can do the job, do proficiently, do it on time, and get the results that we're looking for. And because we're a small organization, you come back with 3, 4, 5 ideas like, hey, Chris, I just did this. I think we could improve it these 3 ways. Can I try this the next time I do it? And if it works, I'll update the SOP. So I'm being very proactive. That's a growth-minded person that really wants to make improvements. So that's the kind of people that we want to hang on to for the long run. That's kind of what we're looking for. And I would recommend in any business, like you want people that are thinking like that. So that's like a big picture. I could go into even more detail, but we try to set very specific dates and gates, 30, 60, 90-day reviews. Everybody is brought on contingent upon getting through the first 90 days, whether you're, like I said, $250,000 a year engineer or product manager or anybody in the business. That way at 90 days, we just want to have a look in the mirror and say, hey, maybe they have a look in the mirror and we have a look into their eyes, each other, and say, is this working? And how do we objectively know that? And then if it works, then we have a set of incentives for them to stick around and continue doing great work.
So this is an interesting case study because as an entrepreneur, there's been times in my career where I've had to wear a lot of the hats, right? And this entire process that you talked about could be an interesting example use case for a listener to attempt. If you don't have an onboarding program now that can get somebody up to speed at a level of proficiency or higher within, 2 to 4 weeks, if it's taking much longer, this would be a great opportunity to use Chat GPT, Claude, Bard, Bing, whatever you wanted to use, and just play with it and see what you come up with. And I guarantee within a few minutes, you'll have a much clearer path forward than you had prior to sitting down with the models. So, Joe,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I know that you're spending time with your family. You're working, but you're spending time with your family and that sort of thing. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And this conversation further confirms that it's no mystery why you've had the amount of success you've had in business. You're high EQ, high IQ. And that's not a combination that you normally see in high achievers. So I want to thank you for being on the show again. And is there a particular URL that people might want to go to find out more about Daily.ai?
Yeah, you can go to www.daily.ai, learn more. Also, we're launching a whole new content series in January around AI, where AI meets, business, marketing, growth, and influence on my Instagram channel. And that's Joe Stolte Live. If you just Google my name, you should see the Instagram page pop up. So if you're into that, we'll just be trying to serve everybody with more information around that, and happy to share it. And thanks for the kind words, and thanks for having me, man. This has been great.
No hesitation at all with those. You'll be gaining a new follower soon. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. You know how to reach Joe, and have fun with GPT or Bard or whatever your model is. Thanks for tuning in to Using AI at Work. Don't forget to subscribe for more conversations about how to use AI at work. And a special thank you to our sponsor, Chief AI Officer, for empowering businesses with AI education and training. Visit their website for a free AI readiness assessment and AI strategy guide to help you get started using AI at work. That's www.chiefaiofficer.com. Special thanks to our producer, Evan DeSaulnier, for making this episode possible. Follow us on Twitter at the handle Using AI at Work, and visit www.usingaiatwork.com for free resources to help you harness AI in your role.